So what are we going to focus on in this analysis? We're going to focus on mainly the Arsenal Player of the Month, Lucas Torreira. I'm so happy for him because he's been moved back to his more familiar role, CDM. Obviously, Emery played him as an attacking midfielder, which was very bizarre to the whole of the Arsenal fan base and baffled us. But since he has been moved back to this defensive position, he's been doing what he does best, screening the back four, making tackles, recoveries and interceptions. And look, in this month, he's had 2 man of the match performances, more tackles, interceptions and recoveries than any other Arsenal player. And since Arteta has joined, he's got the most interceptions and recoveries in the whole of the Premier League. And these are overweighing people like Wilfred Ndidi, who is so good at that job for Leicester. And he has so much potential and quality in the CDM role. And like I said, screening the back four, and he's found a really good relationship and partner midfield pivot in Granit Xhaka, and screening that back four is what he does best. Look, he's played 7 games, 551 minutes, a 90% pass accuracy, and 11.1 kilometres covered every single game. He's an absolute workhorse, but he'll work in his position. In that defensive midfield role, he knows what's expected of him, and hopefully he can be a very big player at just 23 years of age moving forward for Arsenal. He's been linked with a move away, but hopefully under Mikel Arteta, he's a lot happier. We've talked about Granit Xhaka now staying in the podcast. Mikel Arteta has said that he wanted to understand how Xhaka was feeling and why he was feeling that way. Then he wanted to give his opinion and why he would support him, because he said he had the feeling he could become a really, really good player and had a really big potential for the football club, and he could enjoy playing football again. Arteta said he responded in a very positive way and he made him change his mind. Obviously, he's been linked with a move away to Hertha Berlin for anywhere from 25 to 40 million pounds. But we've talked about this on the podcast, how although Xhaka can be upgraded, he's crucial for this kind of Arteta system, and it's probably not worth the potential upgrade this window with all the hassle, etc. Taulant Xhaka, his brother playing for Basel, said he's always wanted to stay in the Premier League, but with how things were going, the Bundesliga, which he thinks is a very lucrative league, which partnered with a lucrative offer, I think, from Hertha Berlin, made it very tempting to leave Arsenal. But obviously he's had the conversations with Mikel Arteta and he's decided to stay. And this could be a reoccurring theme. You see Mesut Ozil saying everyone's so happy now because there is a good structure and people know their roles and responsibilities. And this was arguably the main problem under Unai Emery. And look, we probably don't have to go. Although in an ideal world, a defensive midfielder or a box-to-box midfielder is what we want this month. We're not going to be able to do that in terms of financial fair play reasons. You know, the one that we have been linked to is Boubakary Soumare from Lille, just 20 years. He's agile and we probably need a bit of speed and agility and combativeness in the midfield still. He's 6'2", very, very promising, very agile, like I've said, powerful, very good at tackling. And when you have teams like Real Madrid, PSG, also Inter Milan and Liverpool have been interested, a potential link up with Nicolas Pepe, a replacement for Xhaka or someone like that, possibly. If worth it, it's one of those that in a couple of years down the line, as Arsenal fans, we've always been frustrated that we've seemed to miss out on players and not taken the chance even though we could. And if he's worth 60 or 70 million down the line, then it's definitely worth going for him. I just want to quickly touch on a player's situation, Reiss Nelson, that I think all the Arsenal fans are really relieved and feeling really good for Reiss Nelson as he's getting back to the pinnacle when he first broke in to the first team at 17. He's starting to play really well and being more direct. The Reiss Nelson we saw, Wenger, when he first saw him, talked about him being in awe at Reiss Nelson. He's very direct, very composed, but he still probably needs to work on his finishing and defending. But his work rate has definitely picked up under Mikel Arteta. And he's looking like he can push on to try and fulfill his potential as much as possible, because potential-wise, one of the best that we've got, but we're not, as Arsenal fans, we know he has a lot to improve. If he really wants to reach the top end, he needs to have that desire, hunger, passion, work ethic that Arteta is desiring. And we're really going to see if he is the cut for Arsenal. Because Arteta clearly rates him, but I think Arteta won't have anything to do with him if he doesn't have these non-negotiables he's talked about that relate to Arsenal, and because he still hasn't let the world alight. He's 20 years of age. He still has a lot more to offer. But I think the decision that Unai Emery made of not selling him in the summer when we had the chance for 20 million, instead Emery opted to sell Auba, which was probably his final very positive decision. But like I said, lots to improve, but potential-wise, he has got it. And with Arteta belief, hopefully he can become a good player. We're not saying he can become one of the best, whether he has it in him. We're starting to see that now in the games against Leeds. We've seen glimpses of it in the Premier League and in cup games, but under Arteta. But with this very good game against Leeds, where he's been direct, taking on opponents at the moment, he's showing that, hey, don't forget about me. I'm Reiss Nelson, and I've still got so much ability, which is what we're starting to see, and I think is pleasing Arsenal fans again, because there's no doubt about, he's got something a little bit different and special. Finally, I want to talk about Aubameyang, which we've talked in the podcast. He has pledged his loyalty to Arsenal. Arteta has come out in his press conference before the Crystal Palace match on Saturday at 12:30 and said he's a massive player, but he hasn't discussed the contract in the middle of the season, which goes against what Vineshman said, our head of football, that if someone got into the final 18 months of the contract at Arsenal now, they would look to sell them if they didn't want to be at the club. But Arteta has said, my intention is to keep Aubameyang, because with him we'll be closer to winning football matches, which is undoubtedly true. Nobody's scored more goals in the Premier League since he's joined. So with Arteta keeping him, we can't hold any grudges if he goes, but he's going to stay until the end of the season. A few things to round up now. Moussa Dembele, who we've kind of been on and off linked with since the summer, although the transfer fee might not blow us out the water, I think the wages are not feasible at all. That's what's kind of coming out of the news. And finally, Mustafi has been offered to Galatasaray on loan, and he was absent from training on Thursday. So is he on his way out of Arsenal? That's another thing to kind of look out for in this January period.